It is because of the racial issue or the social status or even because of the first country and the maybe like third or fourth country between the state and Native American people. And what they need is self-determination, of course. Like when someone tries to give you a stereotype among you and they have the assumption and everything, and if I could, what is like borrow Gideon's terminology as false persona, what they need is to actualize what who they really are. So self-determination basically being advocated and deployed. And of course, they do not deploy it in terms of politics, live or demonstration because they are intelligent. They know that they lack of capitals, they lack of powers, and it cannot be something rhetoric when they go to the government and face to face with them. So they, what is like recognize there is one arena that they can share the discourse in order to have the self-determination itself, that is literary work. And the self-determination here, basically, it links to the two elements. The first is the lost sense of the root and community, since the tradition is actually faded and withered because reservation or perhaps urban area, and I infer as hybridity. And also identity articulation here is part of the demystification. What is meant by demystification is more on the Native American women's social status and position. They used to be equal, but then when colonialism occurs, they turn into the what is like second level of the social system, and it's not just. So they try to demystify what they are. They doesn't want to be something that is behind. They want to be something that is equal. But I'm not sure. But some of my friends, when I talk about that, they will talk like, is that because they want to be superior? So far, when I read the book or journal articles, I don't find that Native American women would force, or I sometimes call it the weapon in order to what is like deploy the self-determination is more on the social memory as identity. They have lost almost everything. The land, also their life, their perspective is faded. So they want social memory to be deployed in order to articulate and reconstruct their identity. So there is no false persona here. And I will give you example, not example, but depiction from the literary book that is Leslie Monsilco's Tony's Story, and also the another is Louis Etridge's Pittsburgh House. So here the depiction is more on the equality. In the Pittsburgh House, it is more on the parenting style when a father said like it's okay for the daughter to go hunting, to ride a horse, and it's also okay to ask his son to do some housekeeping, so something equal. But the setting of this novel is more on the 1890 something, so it is really in the past, which is absolutely different with the contemporary life. And about the Tony's Story by Leslie Monsilco, it is more on how indigenous try to give the perspective of their own when there is a debate between the police officer and indigenous family, and one of the family member to the act of killing the police, it is not absolutely, it's not absolutely a crime against the law, but we need to take a look at a little bit deeper why that member killed the police officer. So it's because the family is threatened, because of the tradition also threatened, because they are in danger, so they try to kill it. So it is more on how they try to have to maintain the harmony in order to maintain the harmony and try to kill the bad things, something like that. It's what Silco's try to explain. Perhaps it's all that I That's all, and I will be more than glad if you have any question or comment. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take questions at the end. Sorry, briefly to introduce Law, who's also from University of Kadimata University, who will present identity negotiation of the American Muslim movement as reflected in light of this. All that. Let me thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It is an honor for me to present my paper entitled Identity Negotiation of American Muslim Women as reflected in neither this nor that by Alia Hussein. Okay, well, next we come to the background of the study. Based on some research that I do, that identity usually refers to individual characteristics or attributes that cannot be naturally stated. It is based on variant, and then the sense of having identity can be the source of proudness and happiness, and also confidence. Someone that have the status in the society, in social, and also have an identity, they feel proud that, for example, I am a lecturer, for example, I'm a teacher, I am a lawyer, and so on. So the profession that they choose being their identity, but identity not only about the profession, but also the social they comes and the joins, and also the religions, and also the ethnics or national identity where they are from. It belongs to their identity. So identity is a complex thing that refers to individual characteristic. Next, the identity being the problems, and it is also being the problems of diasporic people that migrate from one country to another country. And it is being the problem for Muslims that go to America, especially the women that stay there. That in this novel, the Muslim from India come to America, that they are growth in Muslim community and then live in New Jersey. After the attack of 9/11, Muslim women become important issues, and some of American people talk about that, their identity and also their roles in America, and some of them afraid of Muslim women, for example, the women that wear the veils and so on. And their problems are not also about fashion, but food, job, and also law. And then in this research, I want to know how do they negotiate their identities, and then what are the problems that they faced, and also what are the solutions. This research was underdone in descriptive qualitative research, and the data are the word phrase and sentences from diasporic literature, never this nor that by Alia Hussein, published in 2010. To analyze the data, I used postcolonial theories, used Baba's hybridity and Tomi's identity negotiation concept. Okay, about the findings. Some of findings from the discussion that Indian American Muslims negotiate their identity mindfully. At first time, some of them feel that I cannot adapt to American culture, and then I cannot stay here in comfortable and so on. For example, the prominent figures in this novel, Fatima as a very young people, a very young girl that stay there from the third grade of elementary school, feel that she differentiates from other schools and all the other American students. That when the first time she entered the class, none of her friends can pronounce her name well. It's become the problem for her that as if she is a foreigner and she doesn't have a place there that feel comfortable in the classroom. And then to anticipate that, some of them build the trust of American people. This is one of the quotation that I got. How can I not? Asked Fatima. Every day she taught education is everything. I'm not going to go against that all I have been taught from the time I was 2. So she felt that by having a good education will solve her problems in living there. And then the next example is about the fashion. When they wear the veils, some of them do not receive them and then treat them differently. For the example, in the elementary school, Fatima she has to wear the jeans and also wear American dress as the other children. But when she came home, her mother strictly forbid her to wear the dress like another child in America. This is one of the quotation that I got from the novel, the example. In fact, who dressed provocatively were often assumed to have weak moral character. And although Fatima's mother did not wear the veil or hijab at this time, she would always dress in modest fashion. Similarly, contrastively dressed, Fatima never wore tank tops or shorts, nor did her sister. In the problem of the fashion, actually, when they do not accept the other, for example, like what an American children wears in the schools or in environments, Fatima wear at school, and then when going home, she wear halwar, samis, or that is like in Indonesia we call like gamis. So it is the traditional clothes from India, like we call it sari, but it is designed in Muslim clothes. And then in the food problems, they feel not only wearing the hijab or veil or also dress, but also in choosing halal food. They feel difficult that when they want to go somewhere, they have eat something and something. But some of Muslims that it doesn't matter that we eat public slitting or public slaughterings, but some of them are strictly that I have to eat halal food and that it must be found in certain place, and when they cannot find that, they bring their food from their home. For example, Fatima, that students still in early age, like the student in 3rd grade of elementary school, she bring the food from home, avoiding that she do not want to eat the other from like her friends. She got the mockery for the friends. For example, how? Or you open your pantry lunchbox. What is it? And what do you eat? And so on. She feels ashamed, but that is the fact that she has to keep her mother and her father idealistic about eating the food. And then in getting halal food, they also found the food from Muslim community that is built there. And then about the career, to get a job, it is hard for Muslimah or Muslim woman. For the example, in the work that I found, when someone buys something in the market using
from local literature. And what the most surprising thing is that that's not only vernacular literature that they don't know, but they also doesn't know about a lot of literature in general. What they know is only the canon literature, because we learn about canon literature in the school or in the university, for example like Shakespeare and others and William Wordsworth. But the sad part is that they don't know about vernacular literature. I mean, this here is the folklore and also the traditional story of Indonesia. And my main concern is that they really have a very lacking reading ability, reading interest. So I try to find a fact, and the fact is really sad that we Indonesia in quite low in reading interest. I mean, from like 35 nation in this world, Indonesia placed in, like, if I'm not mistaken, in number 64. That's why I try to make the awareness of the students how to love the vernacular literature. Next. So this is actually started from 1988, where in Indonesia there is a 5th Congress about this literature, or I mean this international cultural heritage. And Indonesia actually have several artifacts, especially from the Netherlands era. And next, in the 2003, the UNESCO said that in intangible cultural heritage, we coined in the next 2016 that we have a Panji Tales, in which our Minister of Education said that this is a really incredible story, since this is the first story in Indonesia that doesn't have any influence from the Indian story. For example, like Mahabharata and also Ramayana. Okay, next. And also we can see that the vernacular literature versus millennial generation, as you can see that in 2010, the population census data, it is more than 84 million of millennial already booming in Indonesia. And as we can see that if 84 million youngsters, they don't know about the vernacular literature, what will happen to the future? No one will understand about the folklore of Indonesia. That's why in 2016, the problem of the new dynamic raised by the government, and that's why, as we know that the government, Indonesian government already coined the program GLS, Gerakan Literasi Sekolah. It means that the student needed to learn or to read anything in the class for 15 minutes. But sadly, the sad part is that the fact I got is that the students try to bargain to the teacher and ask the teacher to just cut it down until 5 minutes only. And that's really the part that I want to raise. And then at the present days, the extension of vernacular literature, the latest high phenomenon is more than the local literature. And as we can see, that vernacular literature is become extinct nowadays. So, as I said before, when I asked my students, they barely know about the folklore, even the local story of their own area. For example, if they come from Banyuwangi, they don't even understand the story about the Banyuwangi. I mean, they don't even understand what is the meaning of Banyuwangi, and it seems like their parent doesn't even teach them about the local literature. Because students nowadays, I see that they are really interested in the Instagram and also Facebook and also Twitter and others in the YouTube. So it means that the latest gossip or latest facts in the Instagram is the thing that more hyping than the literature itself, even though they are actually a literature student. Okay, next. And perhaps I try to make a transformation steps, but this is only the first step. This is really superficial, because I believe that when Indonesian student as the one who will go international, it would make sense if even the millennial who will become the next related to the nation won't understand their own culture. So my first step is the introducing literature itself about Indonesian literature, and then as we know that inside the Indonesian literature there is a folklore, which means vernacular literature, by approaching through millennial patient. For example, the most hyping one is the Instagram for nowadays. I tried to make a polling and they said that Instagram is their more favorite social media. And the next is example by providing portal of vernacular literature. By here I mean that students nowadays like to download or screen capture the quotes that have relation to their life. So it means that I want someone who is great at the IT and also who knows about the vernacular literature, try to make a quote, daily life quote that will have relation to the students or the youngsters nowadays. So because I see that nowadays children nowadays, or I mean teenagers nowadays, like to screen capture it and then make it as their profile picture, and then sometimes they post it in the Instagram story and also in WhatsApp story. So I hope that by putting the quote and also from what kind of story, it will raise other students' awareness or others teenager awareness regarding this vernacular literature. And the next step is illustrating vernacular literature, because I see that the last Big Bad Wolf, book expo in Surabaya. This is about the imported books. There are a lot of amazing books there. And my concern is that when there is a Shakespeare stories about Romeo and Juliet and it is drawn in a cartoon, a really cute or really funny cartoon, the teenagers like to flocking around and they interested to read that. So I hope that perhaps there is some people who can draw nicely and they will perhaps make a comic about the vernacular literature of Indonesia as well. And the last is the raising family awareness, because I believe that parents or family will become their first education at home. So I hope that perhaps parents will introduce the vernacular literature to their children, not only reading about the word or Disney stories before they go to bed, but perhaps they will tell about the kancil and also the crocodile and all, and perhaps the story about their local area. And my conclusion is that first, being recognized globally means we need to promote vernacular literature. And then second one, promoting it means we need to transform step approaching to millennial on the relay agent for the future. And the last is debriefing of the literary understanding starting from the family environment. I do hope that I will get some suggestion from the audience here, because I do want to promote Indonesian vernacular literature. First, I won't say it globally, but in Indonesia first, because this is really my biggest concern, and I hope that someday perhaps the Indonesian literature will be recognized by others as well in the world. Okay, thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Now I'd like to invite Christian on.
Thanks for the introduction, Mr. David. So, good afternoon everyone. Now it is my turn to present my research entitled Sense of Place and Sense of Planet, Reconciling Locality and Globalization in Kiana Davenport's The House of Many Gods. So I begin my introduction with the recognition that nowadays one of the catchy or hot concept in discussion nowadays is globalization. As we can see that the majority of our discussion focusing on the discussion about globalization and how the impact of globalization in many aspects such as economy and also changing the social life. And for my focus, I would like to emphasize how globalization also affects many tenets of literary analysis, as it is stated by Jay in his book Global Matters, the Transitional Term of Literary Studies. He asserts that globalization concept can provide a framework for studying literature and culture in a transnational concept through vocabulary such as diaspora, borderland, habitability, and so on. And it explicitly they question the other model of comparative analysis. Yet I also found out that due to my interest in eco-critical theory of environmental literature, I found out that the discussion between reconciling the concept in environmental criticism and globalization remains scarce because next, it is due to the assumption that those two approaches has actually located in the opposing spectrum, while eco-criticism, as it is derived from the romantic tradition of America and Britain, they advocate especially the importance of the locality, mainly by rootness, sense of belonging, which is particularly focusing on a particular place or in our immediate proximity, what can be seen as the sense of place. Therefore, there has been some danger or some assumption that by embracing global perspective, it will lead into the assimilation and even elimination of the local altogether. Therefore, as I found out, the intersection between the theories of globalization and environmental criticism still on the balance. So as the case study, next, I would like to share my reading on a novel by Hawaiian novelist Kiana Davenport. What I found notable in this novel is that Davenport summarized the necessity of complementing the local-based tradition or locality with a global perspective, and also it is mainly symbolized through the protagonist named Anna. At first she became reoriented with her traditional Hawaiian heritage and surrounding places, and then how her sense of place is incomplete without her awareness as a part of a global ecosystem. So as a theoretical foundation, firstly I would like to explore the primacy of locality or the local in United States, mainly environmental thoughts or criticism. It is actually due to the derived from the Romantic movement during the Transcendental era and the Romanticism in the 17th and until the 18th century. They criticize the modernity and how modernity lead people to become alienated and detached from the reality. Therefore, one of the pioneering theories of Romanticism, such as Thoreau, through his work of Walden Pond, he advocates that we should return to simple life, live in the forest, while everything can be grown by ourselves. We can build our home ourselves without any influence from technology and modernity. Therefore, this basic premise, later it became the foundational basis of United States environmental movement, such as pastoralism, that is advocating return to the wilderness, agrarianism, that is advocating agriculture as the way of living, and the last is bioregionalism. In bioregionalism, we are not focusing on a political region. For example, in Yogyakarta is the region. We are not focusing on Yogyakarta, but instead we're focusing on the bioregion. For example, the slope of Mount Merapi. Therefore, it does not only include Yogyakarta, but also Klaten, Magelang, Boyolali, and so on. And therefore, the main movement, they focus on how an individual encounter with and become immersed in the surrounding landscape, rural or wilderness, as the counter of the urban lifestyle. And they, due to their advocate of rooting themselves in one place, they actually denounce mobility as nomadism and vagabondage, and therefore the basis of the environmental movement in the United States, it is mainly on the long-term residence in one place. So what I will employ as next as the theoretical framework is from Ursula Hayes. She asserted that sense of place should be complemented by what she coined as sense of planet. She asserts the importance of reconnecting the sense of place with the recognition that we are actually grounded in a global ecosystem. We are actually part of the wider system as a whole. She particularly stressed the necessity of environmental movement to reconcile with the globalization theory by foregrounding two concepts. The first is deterritorialization and the second is cosmopolitanism. The first concept, deterritorialization, implies that in this modern era, our daily life is inseparable with the structures, process, and products that originated everywhere. Like the previous discussion, although we are in Indonesia, we can also buy American products such as Starbucks. And Hayes mainly assert that in this modern era, we should notice that environmental problem has now becoming a global concern, and therefore she theorized an environmentally oriented cosmopolitanism, where at first cosmopolitanism she derived as it is not only part of a global citizen, but we should be part of a global ecosystem. Therefore, we should also pay concern to the non-human world around us. And therefore, I assert that in the next slide, the localism in environmental movement can no longer ignore the fact that environmental crises such as global warming and the extinction of species, pollution, and so on is now a worldwide phenomenon. Therefore, I summarize that Hayes' sense of place should be complemented also with a sense of planet, and sense of planet can be defined as a sense on how political, economic, technological, social, cultural, and ecological networks shape our daily routine. And therefore, the challenge of environmental movement per se is to recognize that environmentalist issues are no longer a local issue, but it is integrated in the system that transcends national and regional boundaries. In the next slide, perhaps I will just briefly explore my methodology. It is a qualitative research in which the primary data is a novel, House of Many Gods, by a Hawaiian writer, Kiana Davenport, as the data is about the quotation and not about statistic and numerical account. And therefore, it is also in line with the framework of transnational American studies, in which American culture is nowadays being studied and being analyzed in a more transnational and global outlook. And now I will move to my analysis. Here is the three steps of my analysis. At first, I explore how Anna's, in the beginning of the story, Anna symbolized the modern people alienation with her surrounding and how she became detached from her proximity. Secondly, it is how Anna's return to Hawaii began her to reorient herself in the local tradition and also the local ecosystem. That I summarize that it became her awareness of a sense of place. And lastly, Anna's journey is complete whether she became recognized of her status as a part of a global ecosystem. So I will begin my analysis. The first is in her early life, Anna in Hawaii is actually not a happy life, where Hawaii facing many turmoil and many ecological danger from the remnant of United States militarism. But we can see that next, during the Second World War, as you know that Hawaii being attacked by the Japanese during the Pearl Harbor, therefore the island has become so highly militarized, and it affects the living condition of the people. Therefore, Anna she is dissatisfied with her life, and therefore she intended to escape Hawaii. In her conception, the cities in mainland America, such as San Francisco, as it is the closest to Hawaii, it is a city of her dreams, where the city is waiting to offer herself as a raw material from which she continually constructs her new identity. She tries to reinvent herself in the new surrounding in San Francisco, but instead she found out that life there is so hard, where even just to survive, she has to do odd jobs such as washing laundry, stitching, and serving dim sum in a Chinese restaurant. Therefore, in her condition, she becomes alienated with her surrounding. She cannot perceive the beauty around herself, as she is only motivated by a struggle to survive. And in the second part of the analysis, when she returns home to Hawaii, she began to reconnect and reoriented with the lands around herself, and I can say that she began to possess a sense of place. It is mainly from her sensory perception and physical immersion in the Hawaiian landscape, where she tries to walk barefoot there and she swims also in the ocean. She feels the harmony of things, the bliss of letting go, and also the closeness. Next, please. Next. And also, her sense of place can be seen to be further strengthened and flourished the longer she stays in Oahu Island. She relearns the traditional dance of hula, remembers the old genealogies, chants, and prayers, and also she began to travel all around her island. Like we can see in the quotation, it was the moment where she understood that these people and her house will always be her solace, her language, and her place. And next. However, at this step, Anna's recognition is still incomplete as she remained only focused on her immediate proximity, her closeness to Hawaii, and she actually began to challenge by one character named Nikolai Volenko, who is a notable Russian filmmaker. Nikolai Volenko, or is also known as Nikki, he is a filmmaker who travels all around the world, which say that it is in contrast with Anna, who just stay in Hawaii in her life. And then we can see in the quotation, meeting him was the beginning of awareness of how small her island world was. From the quotation in the next quotation here, we can also see how Nikki challenged Anna, that Anna actually is afraid of having other perspective, that she originally believed that only learning her tradition, learning the place around her is enough. But actually through the interaction with Nikki challenged Anna to see the world, like in the last sentence, perhaps you are afraid of newness, afraid to expand. And therefore in the next slide, we can see that through Anna's dialogues and connection with Nikki, Davenport stressed that it is necessary to acquire both a sense of planet to supplant Anna's sense of place. And therefore, she has eventually realized that the problem faced in her island, such as pollution, radiation from nuclear, and also global warming, is not only faced by her native island chain, but it is actually a worldwide phenomenon. Next. That we can see that the toxic exposure, like the pollution, is also experienced by the people around Pacific. And although I did not put it in the slide, but even people in Russia also experienced the pollution due to the Chernobyl incident. So therefore, in the conclusion, I summarize that this paper argues that Kiana Davenport, the House of Many Gods, she stressed the necessity of reconciling locality and globalization through the acquisition of both sense of place and also sense of planet. It can be seen how Anna reoriented herself in her native Hawaiian tradition and also Hawaiian landscape, but it is later supplanted by Anna's recognition that actually her island is part of a wider world, and the environmental issues she faced in her islands, such as pollution, toxic emission, and so on, is also experienced by people all over the world. So that's all I would like to say. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Christina. And now I'd like to invite Hidayat and Sophie from Universitas Jenderal Sudirman to give their presentation on Becoming Other, reading Agustinus Wibowo's memoir in Serendipity.
Okay, good afternoon. So today we are going to talk about a novel written by Indonesian travel writer His name is Agustinus Wibowo. Probably some of you have read this book. He already wrote 3 books about travel writing, about his journeys, and some or several countries like Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and then almost all the countries' names with the ending stan. Stan means land. So if it is Afghanistan, so it is the land of Afghan, the Afghans. Yeah. So in this book, entitled Selimut Debu, or A Blanket of Dust, is his first book, telling about, not really telling actually, it's rather showing than telling. So it is showing his journeys in Afghanistan. So when he was a student in Beijing, he decided to went to a country named Afghanistan because he believed that there is something more than just the land of war, the land of, hunger, and all that we already knew about Afghanistan is, a country with the war bombing city, such kind of things like that. So he believed that he would find something different when he's coming to this country. And then he started his journey through Peshawar, Pakistan, and he avoided using planes. So he started his journey with going on a train from Beijing to Peshawar, Pakistan, and then he started to enter a city called Kabul in Afghanistan. And then he's actually a journalist hired in KBRI in Afghanistan, but because he was in love with Afghanistan, so he started his journey, went around almost all places that never touched by probably many people. And then we're interested in talking about travel writing because in these last decades, probably 2 decades, in Indonesia, travel writing is like flourishing, has been flourishing. So next, please. Okay, so actually this is the cover of the book. Yeah, next. Okay, this is the cover of the book Selimut Debu by Agustinus Wibowo. So she is a girl in Afghanistan, but the place is not in the center of the city, but that's in Ruangan, right? Yeah, Ruangan. So Ruangan is a place that there is probably really hard to reach because there is no public transportation, and it's kind of like mountainous tracks. So if you pass the road with the car, it's gonna be hard because it's only one car to pass the street, and then there's a steep mountain over there, so it's very dangerous to cross the street. So it's gonna be hard to reach Ruangan. So the people living in Ruangan, they are minority in Afghanistan, and the appearance of the people in Ruangan are like having slanting eyes, probably sometimes slanting eyes, sometimes like blonde hair, blue eyes, and it's very different with most people in Afghanistan, which are majority are Pashtun, right? Yeah, Pashtun people. So we realized by reading this book that in Afghanistan there are a lot of ethnicities over there. So probably it's going to be the same, like in Indonesia, because we also have a lot of ethnicities. And they also speak different languages over there. Like Pashtun people, they speak Pashto, but Wakhan people speak that, right? So Dari is considered to be the minor language in Afghanistan. Okay, so you can see from these three pictures how difficult to, go to Wakhan. And, Agustinus also experienced like going on a truck, going on a tractor, because to wait someone, to wait someone, to go over that place, it's gonna be long to wait. So if there is a truck or there is a tractor, just go on a truck or just go on a tractor that will go over these mountainous tracks. Okay, so next, yeah. So actually, travel writing has been existing since 15th and 20th century, but probably in European countries they call it like voyage or travels. So it's going to be different when we're talking about travelogues with travel writing. Travelogues probably has a sense of giving guide, or there's a practical function in that. But travel writing shows journeys with probably by using literary sense, so probably they mix the fiction and the reality. So there is no practical function. So it's going to be the basic concept of travel writing. So in 15 or 15 until 20th century, so the use of travel writing is explaining about expansionism. So how European countries went to other countries, probably in Asia or Central America, and then how they depicted people over there, how they depicted encounters over there, like new cultures, new people, but based on their views. So the Oriental discourse happened over here, occurred. So how they view others as inferior. So there is inequalities over here. And then travel writing in Indonesia. So I already told you a little bit about travel writing in Indonesia. It has been flourishing since probably 2007. Yeah, and some of the writings had been filmed. Yeah, so, such as I can't read it. That's this one. Yeah, 99 Cahaya, and then A Dancer, and then following by Agustinus Wibowo. But Agustinus Wibowo was writing have not been filmed yet. Probably because the setting is very, hard to go there. And then, so in this travel writing, there is a view that depicting self and other. So this issue that we will be discussing in here. Okay, so next. But the pattern of story, most of the pattern of the story in Indonesian travel writing is that someone is going overseas and then they are meeting with a lot of people, with diverse people, with new cultures, new people, which used to be bordered historically, geographically, probably politically. So that's it. But in Agustinus Wibowo, the story is more about how the journey is happening. I mean, there is not only meeting with new people, encountering new cultures, and then how they meet. No, but Agustinus Wibowo is more than, there's experience, there's something that Agustino can take from his journey. And his journey is adventurous. I mean, it's not planned, but he's just try whatever it takes. I mean, just probably try new things that not all people want to go there. Okay, next.
So this is the theory that we are using in this research. I can say the research. Actually, this is still kind of ongoing writing. We haven't finished doing the analysis, but basically, this is about what we call as othering. And in travel writing, we have sorry, I have to read it. May I explain that? Okay. So there are two senses on othering actually, or two definitions. The first one we call it as othering as a process in which the members of one culture identify or highlight the differences between themselves and the members of another culture. So this is the weaker sense. It means that there is not quite a further process on engaging with others. And then we still have another sense, or in the stronger sense, we have that the process of othering will continue into another, let's say, action, another practices that will manifest that kind of the act of othering. Next, please. And then another theory that we are using here is a theory from Mary Kay Canalis. She divides the types of othering, or the act of othering, into two types. We call it as the exclusionary and also inclusionary. In exclusionary, actually, the difference between exclusionary and inclusionary is on the power use, or the relation between the power. When we are dealing with exclusionary, we are dealing with how the power is used to dominate, to make the certain group superior than other groups. And we, so this is the discussion that what we find on the exclusionary othering. There are three interactions that found in the novel. The first one is the interaction between Iranian and Afghan, because there are some, or let's say many of Afghans moved to Iran due to for the financial betterment. And in Iran, most Afghans are perceived as the second class, or the inferior class. And the second one, we have the interaction between Afghan and Afghan. It means that in Afghan itself, we have a lot of ethnic groups. And among these ethnic groups, we see that their interaction is not so harmonious, because they still consider that other ethnic groups are not part of them. So they are trying to see their own group as the best, something like that. And Pashtun is the most dominant one, the most superior one, and they also the ruling group of Afghanistan. And the last one, we have another othering from Afghan and the other nation. It happens, or it is the experience of the author itself. The author is Indonesian, is an author, Indonesian writer, and as an Indonesian, he got this kind of exclusion due to his religion and also his nation. Okay, so this is the exclusionary othering, and then next please. Due to the time, I think we go to the inclusion othering. condition, he cannot become an Afghan. But to be an Afghan, to be accepted by the Afghan, some of the community on that ethnic group gave him a new name, an Afghan name, to be part of that group. So this is kind of inclusionary othering that experienced by Agustinus people. Okay, next please. Okay, so the conclusion here is that in the novel we can see that there are two interaction or two types of interaction, exclusionary and inclusionary. And the most interesting thing is actually about the geographical factor, that the inclusionary and exclusionary also influenced by the location of the place. When we are dealing with Ruangan is in a border place, and the people, although they are isolated, they are very friendly and they include Agustinus Wibowo as part of the community. But in the town, Agustinus experienced the exclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, speakers. All very fascinating and interesting topics, and I couldn't take enough notes. I'll very briefly just touch on a couple of points, just to remind ourselves of some of the things that were covered, and then I'll invite three people to ask questions. So, firstly, we had Corina who spoke about Native American women, and some of the things I got from it were their strong sense of tradition, the fact that what interests her is that they are civilized people who suffered disruption to their culture as a result of colonisation. But they're in the process of finding their identity in the modern age. And then Noor spoke about American Indian women, spoke about the identity of American Muslim women, and some of the problems that they encountered by living in another culture, everything from clothes to food, difficulty of getting jobs, and the struggles they had in adapting and working in living in American culture. And then we had Wikyo Waini talking about intangible cultural heritage, and some of the things that came out for me were that there is limited knowledge of the folklore amongst Indonesian students based on the survey that you've done. What is required is to promote a knowledge of folklore, both in terms of identity, but also to promote reading. And then we moved on to Christian talking about a sense of place, which is really interesting as well, talking about how there are global issues that unite the local with the international. That we're in fact one planet, and it can be seen through the ecosystem. So a very interesting perspective of globalisation. And then lastly we had Adato and Sophie talking about a particular genre that's coming to prominence, talking about travel writing and the particular things that make the work of Wibowo very special in terms of the travel, the writing genre for travel, and how to theoretically deal with this genre in terms of others. So now I'd like to invite three people from the audience to ask questions, and if there's more time we can extend. So Larissa is the first questioner.
I'll try to be very quick because my questions are about making it clearer what was meant actually. And it is about the question of terms, both you and you. Why you chose vernacular instead of folklore, and you this strange term as inclusionary othering, because othering is making the other. Inclusionary is not the othering, it is including the other. Then why did you choose those particular terms? That will be actually one question, but two people. Yes, and another question is to you. When we were speaking about making it possible for the character for the heroine to live in the American society as a model group, you were making arguments going through her mind about the meaning of certain heritage or customs in her opinion. And there was such a meaning, maybe I did not understand you well, but you said that Muhammad is the most important person. What you meant by that?
Thank you. Take a second question. Anybody else like to ask a question from the audience? Perhaps the moderator then, with the permission of the group, can also ask a question. So actually my question is like to ask a question. So with Yarini, just in terms of studying literature, just a general question. I'm very interested in what students actually study in high school, in junior high school and secondary school. If you just talk about the curriculum generally, just for my own information, I'm very interested. So unless there's any more questions from the audience, we'll start with the panel. So I'd like the panel to respond to those questions.
Okay, thank you so much for the questions. I do appreciate about that. Please correct me if I'm wrong. In my understanding, that vernacular literature is actually oral literature. Is that right?
In fact, yes. But
Yeah.
you mean oral literature, oral tradition, written actual stories from the oral tradition. Yes.
Yeah.
And meaning not only folklore, but
Yeah.
some other oral stories coming from different cultures. I see. So you just included both into that.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry if I made a mistake. I actually
just used it without explanation.
okay. So actually, this will answer his question too. So when I was in elementary school, they only teach us about the famous folklore in Indonesia. For example, about the Bromo Mountain, and then what is that? That's really famous one. For example, from Sangguriang. That's right. That's really famous one. But when I asked my parents, actually there are a lot of interesting stories, but no one ever write it down. For example, in Malang, there is folklore about Bulu Lawang. Oh, this is really absurd stories, perhaps, about the feathers in the door, and they will make it the feathers in the door as the name of this town. So actually, there are a lot of interesting stories in Indonesia, but sadly, they only write down about the famous one. So I hope perhaps Indonesian government will pay more attention in their vernacular literature. For example, that it is also included in the game, traditional game of in our era. Perhaps just in my wishing opinion, that the government will write it down about the interesting story from our region as well, so that we will have like a lot of folklore, not only the Sangguriang, and also about the Bromo Mountain, and about the prince, the kings, and the queen of Majapahit, and Singosari, Aro, and Kandedes in Prambanan story too, and the Borobudur. So I hope that interesting story from like a trickster of Kancil will be more elaborate, because as we know that the Kancil actually have a lot of version, and this is really interesting. But I hope that other than Kancil, they will write it down for their, I don't know, like legal, formal folklore too, so that other children from other region will know about our vernacular literature. So that's only my wishing. opinion. Okay.
Sorry, next person.
I will answer the question. It's about inclusionary othering. Actually this term is borrowed from Canales' term or explanation. Let me read it for you. From Canales' explanation, inclusionary is how the power is used to create transformational relationship with the consequences of consciousness rising, and then the sense of community or connection, and also the shared power. So in this novel, we translate this kind of theory or explanation in the experience of Agustinus Wibowo with Ruangan society or community. If we, based on this, this explanation, Agustinus Wibowo is the other, the minority one, and then he came to that community as the majority one or the dominant one. But here the Ruangan community do not exclude, do not consider Agustinus Wibowo as the other, as different. They consider, okay, they know that he is different, he is Christian, he is Indonesian people, not Ruangan people, but they are trying to, to make Agustinus Wibowo as part of the community. So there's a kind of sense of belonging.
Just to make myself clear, I understand that,
Yeah.
but I do not understand why that is othering.
Yeah.
That is not othering, that is inclusion, actually. That is in the part of it.
Because they
Of
include-
course, he remains to be the other in this region, but we are looking at a cultural practice that includes by giving a name, by taking him partially under your sort of edges. So, in my opinion,
That's
just this term is sort of misleading.
Maybe it's kind of
Or maybe if
contradictory.
it is done in more particular analysis that would be understood, but still just imagine that it will be used freely by various people in different circumstances.
Okay. Thank you for your suggestion. Maybe I will try to improve this writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa, for the question. Actually, just now I explained the struggle of women there to get their identity equal to the American as what is it, as the minority than as subalterns. And then your question about where Muhammad is important. Yes,
Not what it is important, but what is the most important person, or the first important. You use such a phrase
yes.
that sort of
Yes.
rattles me a bit.
Yes, actually, maybe based on our belief that we have ideal person, but from this book that they believe that Muhammad is the most important person, and then it is also the book from Michael Hart that what is it? He writes about 100 most influential people in the world placed Muhammad at the first place, and then the second is Isaac Newton, and the third is Jesus Christ, and so on and so on. So I mean that it is most important based on this novel and also based on this book. Maybe from the other perspective,
Perspectives may differ. I remember a lecture in my university as I don't remember, Ramban as the first important Jew or something like that. So each nation, each culture is having that
Yes.
sort of genealogy, or maybe most important.
what is it? I mean is based on this book that they believe as their religion, and also from the book that is written by Michael Hart that place the 100 most influential people in this world, place Muhammad at the first place, and then followed by the second is Isaac Newton, and the third Jesus Christ, and then Buddha, Confucius, Paul, and so on. So I think that what I explained is based on this source. Maybe if you have different perspective from the others,
That is so. I just asked your perspective.
yes, my perspective is based on this one and this one. Thank you very much, Larissa.
Thank you for your responses. Before we do finish up, we have a presentation for our presenters' certificates. So present certificates to each.
Everything.